So the news cycle has felt especially dark
Yeah.
and especially heavy this week. I think it's a very strange sensation to feel like your attention is being dragged from one bad news story to another. It's like we couldn't even dwell in the sorrow or the tragedy that unfolded in one part of Sydney because you then had to focus on another part of Sydney.
Which almost invented a third story of the two of those together.
Exactly. And I think as we've spoken about at length on the podcast this week, that does a lot for your mental health when you're watching it unfold. And so today we wanted to try end the week by focusing on something a little different. We wanted to speak about only the good news so that you can hopefully go into the weekend feeling as uplifted as possible, of course, given the circumstances, and find that space to look at the brightness among the darkness.
Okay, I'm keen to get into this because I want to feel uplifted myself.
Fair.
What can we start with?
So I wanted to start with a homegrown good news story, which is about everyone's favourite, or my favourite at least, Succession star Sarah Snook. So this week, Snook won Best Actress at the Olivier Awards, and that is for her role in the picture of Dorian Gray that's currently showing on London's West End. Have you heard anything about this play?
It's a single woman play, right?
It is, it literally is a single woman play, but Sarah Snook plays 26 characters in this show. It goes for over 2 hours. It's meant to be absolutely incredible. It was showing in Sydney, and then Snook has been performing it in London. The play was developed and originally performed at the Sydney Theatre Company a couple of years ago, and now, as I said, it's in London. Snook was incredibly modest in accepting her honour. She said that while it's billed as a one-woman show, it's not. It's the crew who are on stage with me all the time, every night, and they are vital and constant support, and they are inspirational. So thank you to the crew for being there in this show with me.
Are the Olivier Awards like the Oscars?
Highly, highly prestigious. They're the top honour you can win if you're an actor on a London stage. Not bad for someone that has absolutely killed it across the awards season.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel really proud. She's Australian and she's just clearly such a versatile actor. And I am dying to go see this play in London that closes a week before I get to London.
It's incredible to see Aussies kill it overseas in entertainment. We love our global superstars, and I think we can add Sarah Snook to the list. What else have you got?
So we're going to move over to Nigeria next, where the world's first vaccine against meningitis will be rolled out. This is a really significant story because Nigeria is a hotspot for the deadly disease in Africa, with 153 deaths recorded over the past 6 months. Now, the vaccine is reported to protect against the 5 major strains that are prevalent in the country. And we heard a bit from the World Health Organization's Director General, who said, and I quote, "Meningitis is an old and deadly foe, but this new vaccine holds the potential to change the trajectory of the disease, preventing future outbreaks and saving many lives."
It always strikes me when we report on medical innovation that we kind of throw it in as a good news story or
And
we
then
talk
move
about
on.
it quickly. Can you imagine the years of research and work that has gone into creating a little vial of a solution that can literally save people's lives?
It's incredible, and I think it's really important to give the space to these innovations that are, as you said, saving lives and changing the face of disease all across the world. It's absolutely amazing.
We're going to definitely keep an eye on that story because it's clearly one that still has a bit to run. Now I want to talk about women's sport because we've talked about women's sport in this podcast a lot over the last 12 months, especially with the World Cup last year. We're steaming towards the Olympics where a lot of the finest female athletes in the world are going to be on display. But locally, we've had a victory in women's sport this week, right?
We have. So last weekend, the A-League women made history, setting a new Australian record for the most attended season of women's sport ever. In the semi-final between the Newcastle Jets and the Central Coast Mariners, the number of spectators reached nearly 300,000 people.
Wow.
That's surpassing the previous record held by the 2023 AFL women's regular season.
It is just such a victory for sport.
I think that I just go back to all the naysayers during the Women's World Cup who said, this is a moment in time, it will never convert meaningfully. And to see a domestic game getting those sorts of numbers months and months and months after the World Cup, I think it just shows that support for women's sport isn't going anywhere, that sponsorship deals and funding for these games are going to have to reflect the spectator numbers that are flowing through. And I just think, you know, it proves everyone who said that wrong and shows that support for women's sport is a fixture in this country.
And we get to see the Matildas back in action in Paris in 98 days.
But who's counting, Sam?
Me. Okay, we've got time for one more good news story. What can you take us out with?
So this one is about a European Union announcement of a 3.5 billion euro investment in ocean protection and sustainability. Now that's around 5.8 billion Australian dollars. The EU reps said that the billions would be split across investments in pollution management, biodiversity and sustainable fishing. And I think this is a really good news story to end on because I feel like we obviously talk about the effects of climate change on this podcast really often.
Yep.
And just this week, scientists declared the 4th ever global coral bleaching event is underway. So I think that when we're talking about stories like that, when we are highlighting the very severe and very significant effects of climate change, I do think that we need to bring some hope. And we do also need to highlight the work that's being done to try to combat the effects of climate change. And so in this case, a fairly substantial financial commitment by the European Union there, hopefully to better protect oceans. I think, try to balance the bad with the good. And I think this is a really meaningful contribution and hopefully will go a long way in protecting our oceans.
Oh, it's a lot of money. So that's pretty impressive to see such a major financial commitment.
It is. Now, Sam, before we jump off and head into the weekend, I wanted to ask if you have a recommendation to give our listeners to help them feel a little bit lighter over the coming days.
Can you go first so that I can go last because I have a surprise?
Hey, I'm James and I edited the video you're watching. If you're enjoying what you're watching, we'd love for you to subscribe so you can stay up to date with all our latest video explainers. Plus, it'll also help us reach new audiences. Thank you so much, and now back to the deep dive.
What?
Please.
Okay, I will go first. I have had a few restless nights this week where I haven't been able to sleep. And I find myself scrolling TikTok.
Because that's really going to help you not sleeping. Yeah,
Thank you.
great.
I'd like to not hear from anyone about my sleep hygiene. However, what I have really enjoyed this week in my scrolling abyss is watching videos of people completing the Boston Marathon.
Wow.
So firstly, watching anyone finish a marathon is an amazing, amazing thing to witness. Like the pure strength and mental determination it takes. I'd know.
Yeah. Jeez.
I did a half marathon.
Have you ever done a half marathon,
Thank you
Zara?
for asking. I have not run once since then, and that was nearly 2 years ago. But watching people finish that is one thing. Watching people finish the Boston Marathon is another. We know, obviously, that there was a terrorist attack that took place a number of years ago in Boston at that finish line. And so I just think it shows the circle of life. It shows that, strength, brightness, happiness ultimately wins.
Yeah.
And to watch, I watched a 76-year-old run across the finish line and hug his wife. And it was just so beautiful and it makes me really happy. So I would recommend watching those videos if you need a bit of a pick-me-up.
The big tagline after the Boston bombings was Boston Strong.
I was in Boston.
Wow. And this idea of like a city coming together and keeping strong. And when I was watching some of the clips of this year's end, you can see Boston Strong signs still everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's now part of the city's identity.
Yeah. Okay, Sam, what's yours?
Okay, so I think I missed a chapter. Of life, of a good, solid entertainment education.
Okay.
I don't know why I've missed this important chapter, but I feel like I've missed out on romantic comedies. And so I've been...
An important genre.
So important. There's so many references I now know that people are throwing out there that come from funny movies. So this week we're knocking some off to try and get some lightness back. Bridesmaids.
Best movie of
Had
all
never
time.
seen that before.
Truly
Watched
the
that.
best.
And then, have you heard of a movie called Honey?
I have heard of a movie called
Because... oh my God, that makes you feel so good.
Honey. And there's 20 years too late.
And there's a bit of a...
How's this going to work for a podcast?
This is a bit of a... This soundtrack,
Yeah.
if I could set one song as an alarm, it'd be this. And I think this is a nice way to get everyone out of the podcast and into their weekend.
All right. Well, on that note, have a great weekend. We'll be back again on Monday.
I believe
See ya.
I can.